it's a whiteboard video. So let's talk about the Enhanced Fujita scale versus the Fujita scale, because there is a misconception that the original Fujita scale, here, which you can see here from F0 to F5, was based on wind speed. I got a new pointer. Hope you guys like it. Anyway, the original Fujita scale was based on wind speed, and the new Enhanced Fujita scale is based on damage. And that is wrong. The Fujita scale was never, not a single time, ever based on wind speed. Any winds associated with a tornado that you have seen with an F rating is an estimate based on the observed damage. The original Fujita scale and the Enhanced Fujita scale are both entirely and exclusively based on damage. Period. End of. Now, what are the actual differences between the Enhanced Fujita and the Fujita? So, aside from here, you can see the F0, F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. These are all in miles per hour. The difference between the Fujita scale and the Enhanced Fujita scale is all of them have been, aside from the F0, the EF0, have been downgraded in wind speeds based on the damage they observed. Basically, we realized that the damage that we were observing could happen at lower wind speeds than they were being originally rated at for tornadoes. So they adjusted the ranges for the tornadoes. So an F5 originally was 216 to 318, and EF5 now is anything that is 201 miles per hour plus. That is important to remember, is 201 miles per hour, not 200 miles per hour. You can have a 200 mile per hour EF4. We've had a couple that make people really mad, but that's not the point. So how do we get this and this? How do we get these differently? Well, the original Fujita scale was lacking in scientific standards, if you will. So basically what I'm explaining here is we have two different houses. We have our Fujita scale house. We have our Enhanced Fujita scale house. Both of these houses are the exact same. They have been built the same way. They are the exact same way in every possible way. They don't look the same because I'm not a good artist. But let's assume that this house in Nebraska is hit by a tornado. Fantastic. Tornado. And it causes the roof to be ripped off of this house entirely. Okay. We now have our roof gone. We also lose this exterior wall. And we lose this exterior wall. The only thing we have left standing are some interior walls that are holding up this window and such. So we have basically something like that. That is all that is left. Now, with the original Fujita scale, it was basically rated on observed damage from minimal damage to catastrophic damage. Nothing was left, everything was gone. Anything that was basically the house was completely swept away was given an F5 rating. Essentially, end of discussion. Let's say you have something like this, where you have only interior walls remaining. They're going to look at this and say, okay, where does this fall in this range? What wind speeds do we expect would cause this damage? And how do we come to this? Is this catastrophic damage? Is this severe damage? Things like that. Now, in this particular case, it would likely be given an F3, F4 rating, somewhere in this range. It does not take into account how well built this structure was. So if you have exterior walls that are not bolted to the foundation, they're just nailed in, it doesn't change the rating here. Nothing about what you construct with this building changes the rating. In some formerly Fujita tornadoes, there were trailer parks that received F5 ratings because they simply swept away trailers. We know now that it requires significantly less wind speeds to sweep away a mobile home. However, that is still catastrophic damage based on the original Fujita scale. So let's say we go to our Enhanced Fujita scale. Exact same house. It is after February 1st, 2007 or after February 1st, 2013 in Canada. So it's after February 1st, 2007 in the United States, February 1st, 2013 in Canada, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember exactly the day. We have our same house in Nebraska. They built it back the exact same way. And on let's say February 9th, 2009, another tornado. This is a really unlucky house. Comes through. Does the exact same damage. Wipes out the roof. Wipes out the exterior walls. This window. And so, the only thing we have left is an interior wall and something that looks a lot like that. Now, with the Enhanced Fujita scale, damage assessment teams will come and they will look at this house and they will say, okay, this exterior walls were not nailed in. This is not a well-built structure. We have lost the roof, we have lost exterior walls, but we have interior walls remaining. What changed from the F scale to the EF scale is now they have what are called degrees of damage and damage indicators. Essentially, you have a single family house. You go to that damage indicator. You then go through a list of 10 degrees of damage. And this is a single family house. It's had its exterior walls ripped out. It still has interior walls remaining. So it would likely fall into, there's like a degree of damage. It's 9, I think, off the top of my head. That would likely fall into the EF2, EF3 range, depending on how much is actually left inside the building. So here, prior to February 1st, 2007, you would end up with likely an F3, F4 tornado. Now, you end up with an EF2, EF3 tornado. And with the addition of all of those degrees of damage and damage indicators and all of that, instead of having places like that have mobile homes or trailers or trees that can receive an F5 rating or an F4 rating, the highest you can get for a mobile home park is an EF3, a low-end EF3. For trees, the highest you can get is a low-end EF4. This actually just happened in Illinois last year. I cannot remember the name of the town off of my top of my head, but it got an EF4 rating based on trees, and then they did some reanalysis of the damage and ended up assigning an EF4 rating to one of the homes that was struck and was swept away. Now, one of the things that people get mad about with your EF versus F is sweeping away of homes. So, let's say we have the exact same tornado. Strikes before February 1st, 2007, and instead of leaving any of this building left, it just erases it off the map. Completely gone. Slabs swept completely clean. There is nothing left. Same thing happens here. Happens after February 1st, 2007. Slab is swept completely clean. We have nothing left. We have nothing left. Both of these look like catastrophic damage, correct? This is always going to get an F5 rating, basically without question. This may not, and let me tell you why. Because this, the Fujita scale, did not take into account how well built those structures were. Therefore, you could have no idea what this house used to be. They're going to give it an F5 rating, but they have no way of knowing, well, how that house was built, how well it was built, if it was even a house in the first place. Now, we take into account what this structure was. If it was not bolted to the foundation, if it was a barn or a machine shed or a mobile home or a camper trailer or something like that, it's going to receive a lower rating simply because it wasn't as well built. Which, if you think about it, makes sense. Now, the struggle that people have is because, obviously, tornadoes are hard to predict, and they don't always hit things that will give it the rating it may or may not deserve. So, you end up with things like, well, let me think. Let me try and pull up a tornado off the top of my head here Mayfield, Kentucky. Probably was an EF5 tornado. Probably should have been an EF5 tornado rating based on the damage observed. However, it didn't hit anything that gave it that EF5 rating. The Vallonia, Arkansas tornado didn't get the EF5 rating. May or may not have deserved it. There are literally dozens of others that could have given an EF5 rating that didn't. There are some that got an EF5 rating that may or may not have deserved it. There is an argument that has been made that Joplin was not an EF5 tornado. I'm not going to make the argument, but there is an argument that has been made that it was not an EF5 tornado. Now, the other thing is, this doesn't do well with other damage as it is described. Recently, the Enderlin tornado in North Dakota last year was given an EF5 rating after having tossed a tanker car several hundred meters and was given the first EF5 rating since Moore, Oklahoma in 2013. In the Fujita time, it would have been an F5, no questions about it, end of discussion. So that is the difference between EF and F. It has never been wind speed. It will never be wind speed. It is always damage. It's just how much that damage is broken down and how deep into it they want to get.